It's our great pleasure and honor to welcome here today Mr. Don Grantham, who is the president of Microsoft Central and Eastern Europe. We have already a multi-year, very intense and very fruitful partnership with Microsoft. Today is a very special opportunity for us because we are on the edge of learning what is IT innovation in the next wave. And we just had a very short briefing on what we are doing together and discussed our next wave of our joint activities with Microsoft here at the Graduate School of Management, St. Petersburg University. The main idea is that probably in the 21st century, Microsoft and leading universities, including St. Petersburg University, are really strategic partners. So, with nothing else, let me give the floor to Don.
Good morning, how are you? Good shape? Okay, I have about 45 slides, some very dry script, okay? Good, that was British humour, I don't have that at all. Okay, I do have some notes and I do have some slides, but I just want to frame the conversation. I'm looking out in the audience here. So how many people do we have in the room? By the way, I should start with thanks. Thank you, Dean or Vice Rector. I'm not sure how I should address you, but thank you very much for the... I don't know whether I've just promoted you or not, but thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here in St. Petersburg. It's a beautiful city. It's great to be back. It's great to be with a group of people like yourselves on the outset of your careers. And I say I do have some notes and I have some slides to talk a little bit about innovation. But before I do that, I'd like to get... I have a seating plan, by the way, with all of your names. And so I'm going to ask you questions later. So if I call out your name, will you stand up and answer? Is that okay? What's your name?
I'm Mike.
You're Mike? Nice to meet you, Mike. Are you a soccer fan? You are? Good. Football, yeah? Which team? Soccer team. You support soccer?
No.
You don't? Not Zenit, no? No, okay. The reason I mentioned soccer, I say, I'll get onto the slides in a minute. Innovation, what does innovation mean to you? Innovation to me, I'll give you a couple of examples. Last night, we had a long day yesterday. We were visiting customers here in St. Petersburg and partners and government officials. And there was a very important event on last night. Anyone know what it was? Anybody know Real Madrid? And yeah, any soccer fans? Yeah? No? Real Madrid were playing Tottenham Hotspur last night. It's a soccer game. Ladies, those ladies who are looking glazed at me and not interested. And I said to one of my colleagues, I said, well, look, it's, we spoke to the concierge in the hotel and said, we'd like to, can we put the game on the TV? And it was difficult to get the channel and it was on at midnight and we were offered to go to the Shamrock Bar in St. Petersburg to watch it. Any of you know the Shamrock Bar? Yes? Is it a good place?
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. They serve alcohol there, do they? Okay. So we didn't go. We didn't go because we had an important meeting here this morning. We didn't think it was a good thing. But getting back to innovation, I went back to my room and I pulled out my Windows phone. Where's my Windows phone? I don't have it. It's in my bag. But anyway, I pulled out my Windows phone and I was able to dial in to a UK TV channel and watch the game on my phone in my hotel room. I'm sure it was a little expensive way to watch the game, but maybe 5 years ago that wouldn't have been possible. Maybe 3 years ago it wouldn't have been possible. Certainly 10 years ago it wouldn't have been possible. Certainly 30 years ago it wouldn't have been dreamed of. Okay? So that's what does innovation mean? in the very real sense. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about business innovation in a moment and technical innovation, which is even more interesting than that story, okay? But I give you one other example. I have two daughters. They are 23 years old, Danielle, and Natalie is 27 years old. And so I'm looking at you in the audience, and you mostly look younger than them, okay? So, much like you, their life is very different than my life was when I was that age, which was 20 years ago, something like that. Maybe 40 years ago. Okay? I find it amazing that you all live your lives. You make friends. How many of you are on the social networking sites? Twitter or everybody, right? Don't be shy. What's the equivalent of Facebook?
Vkontakte in Russian.
What is it?
Vkontakte.
Contacting. Makes sense? Did I say the wrong word? Okay. How many of you do that? You all do that, right? How many of you can listen, have a conversation, and text at the same time? All of you, right? It's a new adolescent skill. 30 years ago, it was unnecessary. You didn't have that way of using technology. The reason I mention it, it's something that you all probably as an audience have taken for granted. Looking forward 30 years compared to looking back 30 years is what we're talking about in terms of how innovation is going to affect society. Not just business, not just how businesses make money, but how societies and communities and people interact. There are 6.5 billion people on the planet. There's 1.2 billion in China. There's a billion in India. There are 1 billion in Latin America. And there's more than 1 billion in Africa. So have we got any math students here? So 6.5 billion minus 4 billion. What's the answer? There you go. It's 2/3 of the planet are not connected to technology generally today. There is some connection. You go to all of the economies that I've talked about are rapidly evolving. But from a technology point of view and a use of innovation point of view, there's a huge boom in front of us. There's a huge wave that we're going to experience over the next 30 years that is going to be equally exciting and equally challenging and presenting huge opportunities for all of us in many ways, much more significantly than the last 30 years. Can any of you remember life before the internet? See, you laugh. There is one or two of the older guys at the front. Sorry, sir. But, there are one or two of us who can remember life before the internet. Just trying to imagine. I'll give you an example. We just talked about it in the meeting we had previously, as we were, well, in fact, when we were coming down the corridor. My parents are still alive. Hard to believe, I know, looking at my age, but my parents are still alive. They have never, ever bought anything on the internet. They've never put a credit card number on the internet. My 23-year-old daughter has never done anything else but put my credit card on the internet. Okay? and in 30 years' time, how are we going to shop? Everything is going to be connected. Everything is going to be a device. And the impact that that's going to have on society and how we interact and how we live our lives is going to be profound. Very profound. If you think about how governments govern, I'll give you an example. We met with the very senior officials in Estonia recently, very senior government officials. And they have an election in Estonia this year. We should give prizes away. We normally give prizes away to these sort of groups. Is that okay? Can we do that? We normally give alcohol. Is that okay? That's okay as well. Okay. All right. So, a bottle of champagne. Who knows the population of Estonia? 5 million. Who said 5 million? 2 million? 2 million? Who said 1 million? Who said 1? 1. What kind of alcohol do you like? Champagne is good. We'll give you a bottle of champagne later. Estonia, I will get to the slides in a moment. I have lots of slides. Estonia has 1.3 million people. Only 1.3 million people. Russia has 145 million, correct? St. Petersburg, the city, has 4.6 million, correct? Okay. 1.3 million people. Estonia is one of the most advanced technical nations on the planet. You wouldn't have known that. I didn't know that when I went there. They're going to conduct an election this year when 1/3 of the votes will be cast over a cell phone. That was a surprise to me. Is that a surprise to you? Over a cell phone? It's a surprise to me. When you think about security, identity management, making sure that it's one person, one vote. Anybody remember an election in America? Have we got anybody here from America in the room? 1 or 2? Okay, I can't abuse Americans then. Okay. No, this is being taped and broadcast as well, isn't it? So I shouldn't abuse anybody. Okay. In America, there was an election a few years ago, and do you remember they had to have a recount because of the holes punched in the paper, and they were counting pieces of paper. They need to, that needs to catch up a little bit. But in countries today, elections are taking place when 1/3 of the voting is going to take place over the telephone. Most places you go in Estonia, public places, streets, not just Starbucks, not just hotels, not just selected almost everywhere you can pick up a wireless connection. You go forward 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, everything will be connected. Devices that today, there's a device in Japan today, a refrigerator. You know what I mean, a refrigerator? That you connected to the internet. Exactly. Why do you want a refrigerator connected? I don't know, because then when you run out of food in the refrigerator, it'll tell you and you can reorder it at some point. I can give you many, many examples. I think the point I'm making is when you all sitting in the audience look more like me, right? In 30 years' time, the world's going to be a very, very different place from an innovation perspective. So, how much time do we have? We have another 20 minutes before we get into questions. So let's see if this thing works. Okay, the Wharton Business School did a study and they listed the top 30 innovations over the last 30 years. Mobile phones, laptops, the internet, broadband, browser and HTML. Anybody surprised with that? No? In fact, most of the innovations, if they were not technology themselves or from the IT sector, they were innovations that were driven by the use of technology. MRI scans, DNA sequencing, these sort of things, advances in health and biotechnics, and many, many various advancements from an innovative point of view were enabled by technology. Let's see what we have here. So, from a technology point of view, hopefully you recognize that cycle. Innovation in technology started with personal computing, and in the late 80s, the killer applications were spreadsheets. That's in the late 80s, that's only 30 years ago. The next innovation was connecting systems together, distributed computing. Drove a lot of productivity. These were thought as huge innovations in their time, the client-server, distributed computing focus. Then there were network protocols and the browser, the internet era. This is only, recent advancements. And then and we talk now about the cloud. Have you heard about cloud computing? Yeah? You've all heard. Anybody not heard about it? Not heard? Oh, okay. So cloud computing, you all use it today. You're basically getting the use of IT as a utility from a place that you don't know where the data center is. For instance, Hotmail accounts, Microsoft's Hotmail, or any of you using other free email accounts. Do you know where the server is that your email sits on? Do you care? You don't. The cloud's here today. Cloud computing is here today. But it's in its very formative stages. And it's most advanced in its use by the consumer rather than by the enterprise. The enterprise or governments, particularly governments and public sector organizations around the world, but large enterprises, financial institutions, worry about where the data is, worry about security. You've all heard horror stories of disks being left out with personnel records on, or social security numbers on, or tax details of wealthy people. Those concerns around the security of data are very real for very many reasons to very many organizations. And yet they're much less worried about by the consumer. As I've just said, you have an email account, you don't know where the server is, you don't know who else can access that data, truly. You have a view, maybe the service provider is telling you it's secure, but the adoption of that model is global. And it's accelerating. As I said, probably 1/3 of the planet is using that technology today. If we move forward and talk a little more about the cloud, it's not just storage, email, applications. It's the next evolution, the next wave of technology. You can read the slide yourselves, but the real change is going to come from the change in business models and the way in which organizations use the technology, not the technology itself. It's going to benefit businesses, it's going to benefit consumers in ways that we don't truly understand today. We have a view today, but to the example I used at the start of the talk, who'd have thought 30 years ago we would have a system where you can log on, you can key in some data, and you have goods delivered to your home in 12 hours or 14 hours. That didn't exist. You can look at data from websites around the world. You can make friends with people on other continents that you've never met. That phenomena didn't exist 25 years ago. So who knows what technology is going to bring in the next 25 years. We have a view, we have an early sight. We can make value propositions from Microsoft, and we do all the time, and we talk to customers around the value that customers can gain from the use of technology, particularly cloud and IT as a utility. And those benefits are typically in two areas. They're around productivity, or they're around competitiveness, which is sort of one and the same thing. It's either, many customers, they ask us two things. One is, how do I do more with less? And the second question is, how do I become more competitive? How do I become better than my competitor in the market?